My job was to bring in sumo wrestlers from all over the world. So I'd bring them in from like Japan, Mongolia, China, Hawaii, and I learned a lot about their habits. And interestingly, the way sumo maintain their weight is actually by eating only 1 or 2 meals a day. So they basically food bomb during these meal times. So it can be lunch or dinner, and they just eat tons of food and they do not snack. And it's really interesting because if you look at the way a lot of women or even clients that come to me and these women will applaud themselves for not eating. They're like, well, what do you have for breakfast? I really don't have any breakfast. I'm not hungry in the morning. What about lunch? I don't have any lunch, but well, dinner, like if you're so overweight, you're wondering, what are you eating for dinner? So that meal is tremendous.
Hey everyone, it's Mike Mutzel here with HighIntensityHealth.com. Thanks for tuning back in, episode number 120. And today we're live with Danielle Pashko. She's the author of 2 great books I would love for you to check out. The first one is called Breaking Your Fat Girl Habits. And the other book is Smile at Your Challenges. And we talked about her first book, Smile at Your Challenges, back on episode number 9. So check that out if you want to learn more about that. And today we're going to talk about cutting edge, fat loss strategies that she's used working with Oz Garcia in the Manhattan area, and she's been in the modeling industry for quite some time. So she's going to share with us some cool secrets and tips to help you lose weight. So Danielle, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you, Mike. You're a little bit cutting in and out. Maybe it's the weather. Now I got you. You're back.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about your background. So folks, if they don't know you, Danielle, they can get to know you. So you're a nutritionist and you're also a model. You work with models and executives and stuff like that. Like, give us your backstory.
Yes. So I started in this world when I was very young. I was 18 years old, and I started off studying with a healer, and I actually learned healing modalities. I became a massage therapist. I later became a Reiki therapist, polarity therapist, and then I ended up doing a lot of yoga, and I loved it. And I decided to study to become a yoga instructor. And then I later continued on and received a degree in nutrition. And I just really love combining all these different concepts together because I think, like, you understand this concept that overall health is not just one modality. It's not just about like not eating meat, or it's not just about like going to the gym every day, or it's not just about, meditating and having mindfulness. I think you have to do a combination of things. So my interest is to put all of that together and kind of customize all those different parts of my background to try to help them.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and fashion also, and I've been in that world as well, that you mentioned that.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. So thanks for sharing your backstory. And incidentally, you're in the lotus position. So we know that you're a yoga.
That's where I'm most comfortable right now.
That's really cool. No, most people are standing or sitting. We've had, one interview where Russ Jaffe was holding his cell phone while he was on vacation. That was kind of cool. So it's really great.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't in my office today, and I was doing some work in the living room, and it was so cold and rainy. I got into my room and I decided to sit on my bed, and I'm in a lotus position on my bed, which is kind of weird, but that's what I feel like doing right now, to just be in the moment with you. So
just roll with it. No, I like it. Yeah, it's very good energy. That's cool. So let's talk to a lot of our listeners are women, Danielle. So, and a lot of women, struggle with weight related issues, particularly as they get around menopause and things of that sort. So, you go through so many different, tips and strategies in your book and things, but maybe share with us kind of an overview, like mistakes that people make, whether it comes to mindset or nutrition. Let's kick it off there and kind of dive deeper.
Well, I think a lot of the issue is that people, I kind of laugh about this, but they have sort of like a bipolar attitude when it comes to being healthy. On one hand, they may be they're eating wrong, they're not really exercising, they're maybe drinking too much, possibly they smoke. And then they become aware of this and they say, you know what, I need a clean slate. I need to totally change my habits. So before even easing into something very slowly, they end up, I'm going to do a juice cleanse for 5 days. I'm going to take up spinning every day of the week, and I'm going to, go to the gym, and I'm going to, basically they go into a no pain, no gain, coming from completely the opposite. And I think that it has to be a very balanced transition in order to see results and make it sustainable. Because I think when people jump into something too quickly without going at the right pace, they usually fail. It doesn't stick. So I think it has to be a very slow transition, and not to put so much pressure on yourself to be so perfect in the beginning. Just decide each day you're going to make one attempt to be a little bit better. And I think that will slowly make that stick and become a habit. And then you can eventually maintain that for the long term.
That's a really nice approach, because what I've seen, and I've experienced this myself, when you go from like inactivity from travel or too much work,
Right.
whatever, working on a project deadline, and then you jump back into exercise or jump back into something, you can get burnt out, like physically tired and then emotionally tired, and then you're or injured, even worse. And I think that injuries and fatigue.
Totally. Like the weekend warriors.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. So,
Yeah.
but here's I think why people, or, we tend to, overachievers want to do something like that is because you want results right away, right? But
Right.
these small little steps, like just getting up earlier or going for a walk or taking the stairs instead of the elevator, can have a profound effect, can't they?
Completely. Completely. It makes a huge difference. Just doing these small things. You don't have to. I always tell my clients it's not about being so rigid and having to be at the gym 6 or 7 days a week. It's just about taking those small steps that really makes more of a difference. And I can be more specific if you have any questions to really dive into that.
Yeah, let's dive into some of the physical stuff towards the end, but I would like to start off with mindset. That's something you talk a
Mhm.
lot about in your book, and I hear a lot of women say, like you quote in your book, "I have tree trunk legs," or my butt, I have a big booty. You hear these things all the time,
Yeah.
and that just begets more of the same. If I think that I'm like poor or not smart, then you just start to fester those thought processes. So talk to us about the mindset of becoming healthy and having a nice physique.
Well, people think if you look at me, you would think I'm naturally skinny. And the truth is I come from a very big family. My background is Eastern European. Everyone is actually overweight. And I always struggled with my weight when I was younger. I was never heavy, but I also I was never skinny. That just wasn't me. And I just thought it was something that was definitely genetic. And over the years, I just assumed that as you get older, your body naturally declines, you put on a little bit of weight, that's par for the course, and that's what happens. And I think we sort of fall victim of that mentality, thinking that as we get older, our physical well-being and also our looks and our body has to suffer. And that's totally untrue. And I think that's part of the reason why people fail, because they're too accepting to believe that they're destined to a fate that doesn't have to be. You can look amazing as you age. I mean, I'm over 35, a couple years over.
Yeah.
And, I feel like my body is actually better than it was when I was 20 years old. I happen to work with Oz Garcia. He's 64, turning 65 years old. He just gets better with age every year. It's because we believe we can, we take the right steps, and it's totally achievable. So I don't like to hear this, oh, I'm just getting older, my hormones, but all these things do come into play, but you can correct them. You're not fated to a body that you're not happy with. I'm telling you, I've had a lot of disadvantages, even myself physically, and even with my hormones and my thyroid and many things that people hold to be the reason why. And I like to dispel a lot of those myths.
Yeah, that's really great. So if we could kind of narrow down, like, do you have people do visualization techniques like journaling? How do we get rid of that negative self-chatter in our brain and start thinking of maybe, the benefit of having quote unquote tree trunk legs or something like that? Like any tips there or success stories?
Well, first of all, you have to really, it starts with loving yourself and not looking at, if you're a big boned woman, there's nothing wrong with having that and being comfortable with that. You want to be healthy. So first and foremost, you want to be healthy. You don't want to aspire to be super skinny if that's not your makeup. But also, if you're noticeably overweight or you have a problem with a health issue, or you feel like you could benefit by losing some weight and you know that this is something that is problematic, you really can start visualizing yourself looking better and believe that it's possible. You just have to believe it. It's like with anything. If you don't think that it can come to fruition, it's not possible. So it doesn't matter what people tell you. Don't buy into people. I'll tell you what girls do. A lot of times they get together and they say, well, this is what happens when you get older, or, oh, it's so hard, or don't buy into that. You have to deal with your own stuff. Don't let anyone put their influence on you, and just focus on getting healthier, getting fitter, and it's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. And hang out with people that talk about positive things and don't talk about that.
Always, exactly. I should have mentioned that. It's so true. It's really who you surround yourself with.
Yeah, that makes such a big impact, and you don't really notice it at the time. Like just by talking about even a slightly negative thing, like maybe you're not picking on other people, but you're just talking about different, aspects. Maybe it's the news and violence going on. Then you start thinking about that, and it festers in your life. So just talking about.
No, you can't sit and commiserate. It's awful. No. Yeah.
So that's a big first step in the right direction. And
Definitely.
And, a lot of bodybuilders, a lot of athletes, a lot of entrepreneurs, business owners have used visualization techniques for a long, long, long time. And back in 2007, I made this like a visualization board of like who I wanted to be, when I grew up, kind of thing. And so far, I look at it, every morning, and so far a lot of it has come true. And so that's an N of one, but just, these things seem unscience based a little bit, but they do have a lot of validity and truth to them.
I visualize as well. At night before I go to sleep, I do a 20-minute meditation. And then after that, I do a 5-minute visualization. And I just actually imagine myself in the place that I want to be, and where I envision my future and what I'm hoping for. And, there's a saying that thoughts become things, and it's really true.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's fantastic. Great info. So another thing you talk about in your book is that people have this perception that losing weight and getting healthy is like punishing. You got to eat like dry, egg whites and like white rice, and you got to limit your calories and then just grind it out of the gym. But that's not really the case. Like most people that are fit, like really enjoy what they're eating and what they're doing and stuff like that. So talk to us about, overcoming this mindset that it's got to be really a grind and a punishment.
Definitely. I think the Europeans have it right. We should really, really look to them, because they know how to enjoy their life. They do things in moderation. They're happy. They walk around. They're social beings. I think that, we don't have to have such a restriction. We have to be mindful of what we eat. Listen, I definitely watch what I eat. I'm careful. I exercise. I'm regimented to a degree, but I'm not super structured about it. I think that if you have a healthy mentality, 80% of the time, you can cheat about 20%. I just think that you can't, if you're too rigid, it's not going to hold. So you want to make better choices. And for example, like some of the things that I know is that in order to be healthy, you need to put good quality food into your system. I have one of the chapters that I wrote is called Change Your Beliefs, Change Your Body. And basically, I also talk about how if you were in a chemistry class and you were trying to construct something, you wouldn't take inorganic compounds and things that are not from nature and try to create something, sustainable that's going to live and be healthy. The same thing with our body. If we're trying to be healthy and be beautiful and be vibrant, why would we put garbage into our system? So if you see food that's not benefiting you, it's not a matter of restriction, but if we're putting food that's essentially toxic garbage into our body, then we can't create something that's beautiful. So we need to be really conscious about the quality of the foods that we eat, but we should take pleasure in eating really good quality foods. I mean, it's such a pleasure to be able to put things that are healthy into our body. So it's not a punishment, and it's not restrictive. It's actually something to look forward to. So if you see it in that sense, it's like, wow, I'm really excited to have this amazing meal that tastes so delicious. And it's a pleasure. So you need to change the way you think about it.
Yeah, that's a really good perspective. And I think the foodie movement is kind of helping us in that direction.
Absolutely.
Like,
yeah.
And there's a great restaurant, Hugh Kitchen, and I think it's Lower West Side, and it's just like all gluten-free, local, grass-fed, all this sort of stuff. And it's
Yes.
like to die for food, and there's nothing like restrictive about it, right? But
Right.
you
It's
can,
amazing. You almost feel like it's indulgent. It's so good. Yeah.
yeah. So that's a great perspective, and then also, a lot of the diet bars and protein shakes and stuff like that in the retail space are pretty adulterated and using
Yeah.
synthetic sweeteners that affect gut hormones and all that. So again, it doesn't need to be restrictive, and eating real food, once you get your taste buds accustomed to that and you notice energy levels and make time to, cook these things, it's really not restrictive at all, and you can have a great time with it. So
Right.
great
That's very
perspective
true.
there. Now, let's talk about meal timing. This gets a lot of women that I know, including family members and stuff, don't feel hungry for breakfast, and they skip lunch and all this sort of stuff, and then there's like a ravenous dinner appetite. And you were an
Yeah.
executive assistant for a sumo
The
wrestler,
World
right?
Sumo Challenge. I know. I talked about I wrote this chapter called "You Are Not a Sumo Wrestler," and basically how that came to be was I ended up getting a job quite a few years ago in between my health career, working for the CEO of the World Sumo Challenge, and basically this guy would hold tournaments in Madison Square Garden in Vegas, and my job was to bring in sumo wrestlers from all over the world. So I'd bring them in from like Japan, Mongolia, China, Hawaii, and I learned a lot about their habits. And interestingly, the way sumo maintain their weight is actually by eating only 1 or 2 meals a day. So they basically food bomb during these meal times. So it can be lunch or dinner, and they just eat tons of food and they do not snack. And it's really interesting because if you look at the way a lot of women or even clients that come to me and these women will applaud themselves for not eating. They're like, what do you have for breakfast? I really don't have any breakfast. I'm not hungry in the morning. What about lunch? I don't have any lunch, but well, dinner, like if you're so overweight, you're wondering, what are you eating for dinner? So that meal is tremendous. And it's probably the equivalent of everything that's in there is probably more than what a healthy person would eat during the entire course of the day. So that is the surest way to hold onto your weight by just eating 1 or 2 meals a day. You need to keep your metabolism going by constantly eating. And I'm also the nutritionist for a day school. And you look at these little kids and you see these like 11-year-olds, or 10-year-olds, or like these little skinny string beans. And if you watch the way they eat, it's like they'll have a little bit for breakfast and they run away from the table. Then maybe they'll have a few bites for lunch. Then they run away and they go outside and they play. Then maybe they'll have another snack later. Then sit down for dinner. They'll have a couple bites, run away, and then maybe something sweet before bed. So they never gorge, they never overdo it. They're always moving. They always have something in their system. And that's really what we should do as adults. When you have your parents on top of you because you're a child and they're making sure you're constantly nourished throughout the day, then you're going to have proper nutrition, your metabolism's going to stay revved, and you're not going to overdo it. But when we don't have someone on top of us, we sometimes do the opposite, which is not eat at all. And then we save it up for later and then we get fat. So it's actually better to space it out.
Yeah, that's amazing. And, I haven't heard it articulated that way and had never thought about looking at this in the reverse. We look at like, what do lean people do? But what do sumo wrestlers are trying to maintain their weight? They're trying to be as heavy as they can. So it's like, that's a
Yeah,
great population to study.
it's a great population to study. And they also drink a lot of alcohol,
Mm.
wine and beer. So think about that. All the beer, all the wine, food bombing, carbs, huge 2 meals a day, no snacks.
Yeah.
So if that's what you're doing, you're going to get fat. And they
Pretty
exercise. And look at sumos. They exercise. It's not like they just, sit dormant all day. They're moving. So that goes to show if you're one of these girls who's maybe like, running around doing a boot camp and a spin class and you're, killing it at the gym, but you're like eating once a day, not going to help your case.
Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness, great perspective. And I think you talked about in your book that they were afraid to eat, these sumo wrestlers were afraid to eat multiple times a day because they knew that would like cause them to lose some weight. Is that right?
Yes, because it actually will rev up their metabolism even more and they don't want that. You have weigh-ins, you have to keep your size.
Yeah. Wow.
Girls do not want to keep their size.
Yeah, right. Oh my gosh. I hope this really hits home for people, because there's a lot of like confusion on the internet. Should you eat breakfast? Should you skip breakfast? Like intermittent fasting and
That's okay. Intermittent fasting is intermittent, so that's not an issue. It's people who basically do this on a daily basis, or the women who don't actually eat a meal, but let's say they have a coffee in the morning, but they make that a latte, and then even if it's a skim latte, but it's a grande, and if you think about what's in there, and then maybe they put a little bit of whipped cream or caramel, and then maybe they don't really have a lunch. I ask them if they have lunch, they say no, but then they eat some kind of oat muffin with another coffee. So really they're taking in these calories, but it's nutrient void food. So they're not really getting the benefit. They're not feeling satiated. So they're still ravenous come dinner time.
right. And then
Yeah,
what they are eating is, even though it doesn't appear to be unhealthy, it's really just processed sugar in a sense. So it's
exactly.
and that's the thing about dairy too. I mean, since you brought it up, the latte, that's really common for people to do that.
Right.
They don't eat breakfast, but they have the big old, cappuccino or latte or whatever with a
Yeah, even the skinny ones, they think it's because it's marketed as a skinny latte. Or think about it. When you have that milk, it's not a serving size of milk. You're having a giant one. So even if it's skim milk, you're talking about 80 calories times two. Now add in all the hormones that are in there. It's artificial. I mean, basically, it's just garbage.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
not serving them. It's not high in protein. It's just not a good beverage.
Right. Yeah. Homogenized, pasteurized, milk, not a good thing. Dairy is low glycemic, but it's paradoxically high insulinogenic, meaning that even though it
Yes.
doesn't affect blood sugar, it spikes insulin. And we know that insulin promotes fat storage and weight gain and all that sort of stuff. So,
Completely.
so yeah, you're not affecting your blood sugar, but you're really causing dysmetabolism at the end of the day, which Lauren Cordain talked about in his book.
100%.
This is published 2004. So old information that still needs to kind of get out there. So
I know. And the same goes for soy also, a lot of women I know they'll swap it out for the soy version, which is no better.
oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a great book, The Whole Soy Story, if anyone hasn't or
Yeah.
wants to read up on it and on the controversy. I have my own soy story that I've shared on the show, having soy protein and testosterone imbalances and all kinds of stuff like that. So soy, at least how it's consumed commercially available here in the U.S. is not the same stuff, that is fermented and stuff like that in Asia. So great
Completely.
perspective. Now, Danielle, cellulite is a big thing that comes up a lot. A lot of women struggle with this. I
Yeah.
know you've interviewed a surgeon that's really well known in the Manhattan area. So give us the skinny on cellulite.
Well, cellulite is one of those things that it can be genetic, but also it has a lot to do with the quality of foods that you eat. A lot of times, if our body is loaded with contaminated foods, has too much toxicity, we can have a lot of toxic buildup in our cells that can cause a little bit of rippling around the buttocks area or inner thighs. Also, there's which is actually very interesting. What I had learned, one of the doctors that I had interviewed for the book talks about the type of underwear you wear and actually cellulite, so grandma underwear that you would never think, but the way that the elastic goes around the thighs, excuse me, he said it almost works like a tourniquet, where it actually squeezes the area around your thighs and your buttocks, and after long periods of time, it can actually cause some rippling. So his recommendation is actually to wear thongs to help with cellulite formation. And also, there's quite a few studies that have shown women in more rural countries and how they do not eat foods that are processed, and they have less cellulite just because, for two reasons: they eat less processed foods, and also a lot of them don't wear undergarments. So I don't know which to hold responsible for that. And they're also walking around more, and they're not so sedentary. So it's a combination of things: not being sedentary, not eating processed foods, also possibly your undergarments. And then there are some things you can do aesthetically to kind of help with that. But as a start, those three things are just something that you can do without doing anything surgical.
Yeah. So the circulation, what I gathered after reading that
Yeah.
chapter in your book, the circulation's a big deal.
Yes.
Interesting. So standing, getting a standing desk, moving more, exercising, right steps. And what about like massage and like maybe a foam
Well, that's
roller?
actually a great point. Yes, lymphatic drainage, moving everything, moving any toxicity, the lymph away, that will make a difference. So it's important to do that as well. And
Yeah.
also, as you lose weight, you will start to lose some of the cellulite. But there also are women who are like skinny fat, so they're skinny but still have that cellulite. And at that point, there are some things you can do. I speak about it. There's one thing called mesotherapy, which is little homeopathic injections that can help with that. And there was another method of something that I've actually tried before. It's called Vaser Shape, and it's sort of like it's like an ultrasound on your thighs and on your buttocks, and it's hot, but it actually works to help smooth out the area. I mean, for myself, I'm pretty thin. I exercise a lot, but still have a little bit of dimpling, it's one of those things that most women have, and we can hide it well, but actually the Vaser Shape really helps. So if you've done everything you can and you have a perfect diet and you exercise a lot, but you still have that, I recommend Vaser Shape or mesotherapy. It's not actually a surgical procedure, but you do it in a doctor's office, and it'll last 6 months to a year.
Oh, wow. That's great. So now that you've been working with a lot of models and have, experience in the modeling industry, cellulite must be a problem for some women. So what's like the traditional like treatment for women in that industry? Maybe they're not accustomed to the detox and all this other stuff. What do they normally do?
I mean, they will work out, they'll do exercises to try to help with once you have cellulite, it's hard to get rid of it. It's easier to prevent it from coming on, but once you have it, it's almost impossible to get rid of. So at that point, some people may go the more surgical route, which I'm not a fan of. So if you can do a non-surgical option, like I'm not a fan of liposuction. For me, that's last resort. So I think if you can do something like a mesotherapy or do an ultrasound technique, I think that would help to get rid of it. And of course, you have to watch your diet and exercise, because even if you get rid of it, but you're not conscious about these things, it's just going to come right back.
Yeah, that's a great
Yeah.
point. And you also talk about in your book declining estrogen levels, and we know that like when
Thank
women
you
go through
yes,
menopause, the wrinkles and stuff. So talk about
yeah,
like water
yeah,
retention and estrogen.
that happens too. Yeah. I mean, once you're basically you're declining with your hormones, I mean, it's definitely you're going to see wrinkling, you're going to see more sagging, you're going to see more cellulite formation, potential weight gain. So that's something that does happen, but there's also ways to work with hormones. I mean, I'm sure you probably know a lot of practitioners who do bioidentical hormone replacement therapy, which is possible. There's also more natural ways to just even help hormone replacement through supplements if you actually didn't want to go that route. They were using actual hormones. So you can work around that, but again, once you have the cellulite formation, it's harder to combat versus preventing it in the first place. So I'm talking more to the girls right now that are, my readership, which are in their 20s and 30s and 40s. Right now is the time to work on prevention.
Yeah. And so what would you offer? Like a lot of cruciferous rich vegetables to kick up, healthy estrogen metabolism? Like what sort of advice do you have in
Yeah.
terms of like specific vegetables or nutrient recommendations for those girls?
That's actually a great point. I think cruciferous vegetables are really, important. Doing a lot of greens. Also, make sure that you drink a lot of water. I mean, people underestimate how important it is to drink clean, fresh water. And I think to be able to, we need to get rid of waste products. So that's very important. A lot of greens, a lot of fresh water. And yeah, I think we need to make sure that we're always doing that and constantly working on our natural ways of detoxing.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So let's finish up on like body dysmorphia and orthorexia and being
Yeah,
too healthy for our own good and
I
over
know.
exercising. Like,
Orthorexia is a big one right now.
yeah,
Orthorexia, for those of you who are not familiar with it, I was a former orthorexic. I'm sure some of you, our listeners, don't even know what an orthorexic is, but you qualify as being one. Orthorexia was a term that was coined by Dr. Stephen Bratman a number of years ago, and it's an obsession with being too healthy. And what's been happening is that people are so sometimes obsessed with being healthy that God forbid, they have a piece of sugar, they have gluten, they have, a drink, they eat a piece of meat, they skip a workout, and they beat themselves up so much about it that it sort of negates all the positivity that comes from a healthy lifestyle, because our mindset is just become so corrupted. And that's not good either. You really need to be balanced. I mean, I know for myself, just can I share a little bit of personal
Let's
experience?
do it. Yeah.
So years ago, I was a vegan, and I basically, ate mostly raw food and then some cooked food, but also, I didn't have any meat. I didn't do any gluten. I didn't do sugar. I didn't eat any dairy. I was so conscious. I did yoga, Ashtanga yoga in the morning. I ran in the evenings. I mean, forget about it. I was just totally regimented beyond belief. And even with having such rigidity, I ended up getting thyroid cancer a couple years ago. And it just was kind of interesting to me that someone who was so rigid with all my practices, it's like, how do I get so sick? How did that happen? So sometimes you could do all these things. And of course, look, it's good to have healthy habits. I'm not saying to abandon your healthy habits, but what I am saying is that once I went through that and I said, oh my God, I did all of this and it didn't serve me to the way that I was hoping for. Just because you do all these things, it's not insurance that you're never going to get sick. So the point is to take on healthy habits, but you also want to be able to live and be happy and have your soul be fulfilled, because it's way worse, way worse for you to have an unhappy spirit than it is to eat a little bit of gluten, white sugar, once in a while. It's okay. It's a birthday. Have a piece of birthday cake, have a toast of some champagne, skip a workout when you're on vacation. Like, you have to live. That's part of being human. It's part of having pleasure. Just make sure that when you come back to balance, it's a healthy balance. So just enjoy yourself every now and then. Just don't beat yourself up. Just be nice to yourself.
Yeah. Because at the end of the day, it's like, what are you doing all this for? You know what I mean? Like, if you're going to avoid being social and avoid hanging out with
Great
friends
point.
because they might have a little gluten or a drink of beer, it's like, well, what's the point of
Right.
living just so you look good in the gym, kind of thing? Like, you need to get out there and have fun. And so
Right.
I personally struggle with this and have struggled, I wouldn't necessarily call it orthorexia, but it's some spectrum of that. In high school I was working out all the time and then wouldn't go out with my friends and this and that. And then the times that I did go out, I'm like, oh my gosh, I had such a great time. Yeah, I had a little
Yeah.
beer or didn't eat as healthy, but it's like you feel so refreshed. And I think,
Right.
having that community is really important. So
Definitely. You just
maybe you
can't get
can,
too caught up with it. You can't, it's good to maintain your healthy habits and be health conscious most of the time, but you got to let yourself go every now and then, just for your soul. You,
right.
even Maimonides, I like to speak about him. He was a physician, and Maimonides Hospital is named after him, and he was also a rabbi and very, very spiritual. And he always talked about balance and how he all of his theories about health still hold up to present day, which is amazing because they go back, thousands and thousands of years ago. And he also said that everything needs to be done in moderation. And, at a time of a celebration, we should be able to have a drink or be able to have something sweet or be able to enjoy. But most of the time, make sure that we take care of our body. And in order to be a spiritual being, we needed to have a healthy body to be able to pray and be spiritual and basically get get to a higher level. He always felt like health problems were actually had to do with an imbalance in the soul. A lot of problems that were happening physically, but although he felt that way, he also noticed that it was important to not be so rigid 100% and have that balance point. So I think it's really important to do mostly healthy things, but also give yourself a little bit of a break.
Mhm. That's a really great perspective. And we all probably know people in our lives that are not on this orthorexic path and do eat a little gluten, heaven forbid, and drink beer now and then. And they look absolutely amazing, have great energy and great relationships. And so it's a really interesting perspective. I mean, what you eat obviously is very important, and exercise is, but also live your life and have fun and hang out with other people. So
Yeah, totally.
great perspective there, Danielle. So anything about the book or any, final words before we go to some final questions here that you want to share that we didn't get to discuss?
Well, I wrote this book because I work with so many women, and I feel like they're always coming to me and saying, I work out all the time, I practice yoga, I juice cleanse, I'm a vegetarian, all these things that typically would lead to what we would expect to manifest these really amazing results. But they don't realize there's probably something that they missed. So I think that my job here is really to help them uncover where they're not catching something. So it's for the health-minded woman that thinks they kind of do the right thing, and they probably do, but they just need to be redirected.
Mhm. Yeah, it has some of those missing links and different ideas that you don't often see in other health and diet books.
Right. And I also share my own experiences because I made a lot of mistakes, and that's why it didn't work for me originally. And when I figured it out, I was like, "Oh my God, I have to share this information because I couldn't believe how my body morphed." And I think that so many people would benefit just from having a better understanding of where they just maybe could tweak something just a little bit, but it'll make such a dramatic result in their body.
Mhm. Yeah, and I like, the theme that's woven in throughout your book is, yeah, weight loss is important, but it's about overall health first. You really talk about that, and
Exactly. Yeah.
and I
It
think
is,
that
is sorry.
I think that's awesome. It gets lost from the conversation sometimes. We're so fixated on weight loss that sometimes we sacrifice our health to achieve weight loss, and it's like, wait, why are we doing this? Health is the most important thing. You know what I mean? So
Health is
great.
totally the most important thing. That's why I'm so against, so many diet products or artificial sweeteners or, basically starving yourself or tricking. It's like trying to beat the system. Like you could, eat whatever you want, not work out, but you take this weight loss supplement and you're going to lose 20 pounds. Like it's horrible. Our bodies are not designed to be like that. We're supposed to move and exercise. We're supposed to eat good quality food. There's no cheating the system. I mean, you have to do it the right way because the end result is you want to be healthy. It's not just about being skinny. I mean, yeah, you could be a size 2, but you could have migraines and irritable bowel and you can't sleep at night and you're anxious and you're depressed and you have all these other issues, but you look fabulous. I mean, is that what we want? No. So you want to be healthy inside and and look good on the outside. It's totally intertwined.
Yeah, great perspective. I never got on to the HCG dieting that was, I think it's still popular, but it was really
Yeah.
popular in the late, like 2009, 2010. And everyone I
Yeah, a
knew
lot
that
of
did it, they're still overweight.
right. That's just it's cheating the system,
Right.
and you want it to be sustainable.
Yeah, that's a great
Yeah.
perspective. Fantastic. So I know we've asked you this question before, but if there was one whole food substance, nutrient, botanical, or dietary supplement that Danielle, you just could not live without and you highly recommend, what would that be and why?
I happen to love I love powdered greens. I know that's kind of a strange thing, but I just like to have them on. Actually, there's a chocolate green supplement that I really like, and I wish I can remember the brand right now, but I feel like I don't always have time to have vegetables, and I feel like I can take them on the go, and they give me energy and a little bit of sweetness, and I just feel like I'm having my daily fix, and it has probiotics, which is really good for the gut,
Mm.
and. But I don't know. I feel like there's so many, it depends on my mood and the day of the week. So I
Yeah,
feel like yeah, you stumped
good.
me for a second.
That's awesome. Yeah, well, if you think of something else, let me know. But so this is your second book. You have a busy practice and stuff like that. So we want to know, what's your morning like? What's your first couple hours of your day? Do you have a routine that you go through, and can you share that with us?
Yeah, I would say that first thing in the morning, I get up and I probably like to stretch a little bit. I normally have some water and some lemon water actually. And before I even put anything in my system, I go into my living room and I spent a lot of years as a yoga instructor. So my nature is just I like to get up and move around. So I'll probably do some stretching and then possibly after that I'll have breakfast and probably take my supplements. And then I walk through Central Park to my office, which is really nice to be able to do that to see clients. And I would say I don't even go to the gym that often, to be honest with you. I do so much just at home movement wise, and then even just walking to and from work. I mean, I'm in New York, so I'm kind of lucky that I get to do that. But then I see clients, and I walk home and read and write a little bit. I'm always journaling, and it changes day to day. It depends how I feel. Maybe a couple of days I will go to the gym, but I'm not super regimented. Like, it's not like I say I wake up every morning and I go, cycling at 6 a.m. or I'm, on a routine. I would say that it goes day by day how I feel.
That's good. But but the key point here is you get up, you have water, then the lemon water, and stretch out. I think that's a really good morning routine.
I always stretch out in the morning. I think it's really important to start off the day getting your body moving. Yeah. And being hydrated.
Yeah. Great perspective. That's awesome. So if there was one lifestyle or health tip that you could share with someone from the World Health Organization or Barack Obama or a future president, in passing, what sort of lifestyle or health tip would you want them to know and why?
Well, one thing that really I'm just completely against, and I think is so problematic, is I really have a thing with artificial sweeteners and preservatives and processed foods. I mean, I know that's more than one answer, but I feel like it's just so much of what we see in our food system. And I just feel like it should just all be banned. Yeah. Like, there should be a law against processed foods. Like, I don't even know why it's acceptable to have that. And I know that even for a while, we were banning the amount of Coca-Cola we can drink, that the diet soda was okay. Or why we're allowed to serve processed foods in our school system, or why, I really have an issue with that. Why are we eating things that are not actual food and don't serve us? I mean, there's a better way to make things healthy and still pleasurable. So I really have a problem with what we're feeding just our country, and, the level of obesity and health issues and diabetes and cancer and heart disease. And it's sickening. So I really think if we could somehow take that out of our food supply, that would be amazing.
Right. Yeah, that's a great perspective. I mean, from the loss of productivity to the expenses linked with, hospital costs and then the environmental costs associated with, distributing all these processed foods. I mean, there's so many different, reasons why we should just eat local, organic, healthy food. But, and we'll see.
I mean,
anyway,
how you are and how I am. Like, you don't eat things out of a box or a bag or, prepackaged. Like, everything is fresh. Like, and that's the same way that I food shop. I mean, the food that I eat for dinner, I probably grab, in the afternoon, either on the health food store on the way home. I'll pick up maybe some squash. I'll get a bag of salad. I get some vegetables. I get a piece of fresh fish, and I cook it on the spot. I don't have anything in my refrigerator that's been left there for days. I don't eat anything out of a can. Like, I guess that is one tip that I would say that really works. I just don't eat anything processed. It's not even in my realm of consciousness to even eat that way. So I always eat on the go. I mean, not on the go, like at the moment. So I just decide I want to eat something, I go to the store and I prepare it at that moment. And it doesn't have to take more than a half an hour.
Right. Yeah, it's very easy to cook things healthy. So if you're not sure where to start, butter, garlic, and a little sea salt can get you a long way with basically any vegetable.
I mean, honestly, that's perfect.
That's fantastic. So Danielle, I know you're active on Facebook and Twitter and a website and stuff like that. So you have a couple different books. Where can our listeners reach out to you and learn more about what you do?
Sure. My website is my last name, which is Pashko, Pashko, wellness.com. And otherwise, my Twitter handle is just Danielle Pashko. So you can check me out there.
Right on.
And then my books are sold Barnes & Noble or Amazon.
Yes, Breaking Your Fat Girl Habits. Would definitely recommend you all check that out. It's a great book. I have the physical copy and also the Kindle copy. So really enjoyed reading that. Cool. Really enjoyed catching up with you, Danielle. So thanks again for coming on the show, and hope you have a great weekend and stay warm there in Manhattan.
Yeah, stay warm as well. Thank you, Mike.
Will do.
Take care.